I adored Searching, so I was really looking forward to Missing, and I have to say the film is really good. There are some bits that I think were unrealistic, unbelievable. I'll talk about that in a moment, but this will be a spoiler-free discussion because I do thoroughly recommend it. This was released this year, 2023, directed by Nicholas D. Johnson and Will Merrick. And I'm going to try my best to not compare it to Searching. It is a standalone sequel. It's a similar concept. The entire story is told through computer screens, FaceTime, apps. I love that. I just think it's always such a fun device for a thriller or a horror, and it works really well. The story is interesting. It's about a girl called June, played by Storm Reid, whose mother, Grace, goes missing. Grace is played by Leung. And June is supposed to pick up her mother from the airport when she gets back from her holiday with her boyfriend, but she never returns. Neither does the boyfriend. And June has to try and work out what's going on. And I don't want to say too much more about that. What I will say is that there are some bits that I didn't believe in, some things I didn't buy into. First of all, I don't think June was the best written as a character. The performance was very good, the acting across the board for the whole film, absolutely fine. But June felt not very believable. First of all, I didn't think she was the most likable character, so I didn't necessarily feel her emotions. But at the same time, I felt like she didn't have a very believable emotional response. She did at one point, but for most of the film, I just felt like she didn't respond the way one would if their mother had gone missing in very suspicious circumstances. Yes, one could argue that she was operating on adrenaline and that kept some of the raw emotions at bay, but there would have been breaks in that. There would have been times when she couldn't suppress that emotion. For example, when the investigation slowed down. We also didn't get a lot of the police involved in this, and I feel like that meant it was quite unrealistic. But, well, something that worked to begin with, but was also unbelievable, was that it's kind of hard to describe without giving any spoilers, but basically June employs somebody from a website that's kind of like TaskRabbit. I believe they called it Go Ninja. And she tasks this random man to go and find out various things, because obviously June's at home, her mother was on holiday, and she asks this man to go to different places, such as a store that she believes her mother and her boyfriend went to. And while he was there, the guy managed to get the receipt to find out what they purchased. That wouldn't happen. A store would not give a receipt to somebody who has no connection to that purchase. She asked him to go to the hotel and look at the camera footage. A hotel wouldn't just show somebody the camera footage. So I feel like that was, on the one hand, something they employed to try and make it a bit more creative and to use, another level of technology, but it was also very, very unrealistic and unbelievable and kind of felt like a cop-out. Like they didn't work too hard at trying to find a way that was believable to make it work. But I will say that after about the halfway mark in the film, it became pretty believable. June had a much more believable emotional response to things. The way the story was told was a lot easier to get on board with, and things, well, I was going to say things started to make more sense. Actually, within the narrative, things started to make less sense, which is when it became really gripping and compelling, and I was desperate to know what on earth was going on. But in terms of the way the story was told, it was a lot more believable. I won't say what happened, of course, but what I will say is it pleased me because I hadn't expected it. It's not something I saw coming, and I found it to be really delightful. Maybe delightful's too happy a word, but I found it to be very entertaining, engaging, thrilling, all of the positive adjectives that I can throw at this. There were two moments that I thought were perfectly done. They are spoilers, so I'll discuss those in a moment. But generally, it's a really good film. I know I said I wouldn't compare it to Searching, but what I will say is it's not as good. It feels sloppier. It feels like they didn't try as hard to make everything fit in the right place. The guy from Go Ninja, I believe that's what it's called. I apologise if I'm misremembering the name of it. But that felt... He was a great character. I loved the character, but he wouldn't have had access to things that June was asking him to access. So I didn't believe it. They could have tried a bit harder to make that work. But the rest of it was really good. Very well written, very well paced. The acting was good, even if I didn't necessarily always believe in the characters or the way they were reacting to certain situations. I also feel like there were some characters in this that didn't need to be in it, that didn't really add much, or they weren't used enough. For example, one of June's friends is in it a reasonable amount, but she didn't really add any value to it, and I feel like they could have got more out of that character. But generally, Missing is very good. If you like Searching, you will like this. It's not as good as Searching, but it still worked. So I guess I'll tell you the two bits that I loved, that I thought were brilliantly done and put a shiver down my spine. And these are big spoilers. So I will say big spoilers for these two moments. The first moment is when she realised that woman, I feel like I shouldn't say this out loud, but it is a spoiler, I can't stress this enough. When she realised the woman wasn't her mother, it took me by surprise. The other bit is when the church guy was at her doorbell and pulled his hood down. And that was, what on earth? And then I believed him, I bought into what he was saying, and then 4 minutes later he's doing what he's doing, and it was an emotional roller coaster, very shocking, very compelling, very, very well done. So I do recommend it. I hope you've seen it, otherwise I've just spoiled the two best moments in the film. But even if I just have spoiled it, I still thoroughly recommend it. It may not be perfect, but it's still pretty tremendous.